right? So in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Krishna explains that Sarvasya Saham Hrudi Sannivishto Matta Smritir Jnanam Apohanam Cha Vedesya Sarveraham Vedavedyo Vedanta Krit Vedavedeha. So the ultimate purpose of all these things, all the material and spiritual activities, is to understand and know and please Krishna. Vedesya Sarver Aham Vedavedyo, Aham, to know me. Aham Vedavedyo Vedanta Krit Vedavedeha Saham. So, by all purposes, by all the end goals of Vedas, who should be known? It is Krishna. And our goal is to please Krishna. That's the reason the acharyas and the pure devotees have explained again and again that the primary goal of life, material life, is to please Krishna. Everything else is secondary. So, in order to fulfill that primary goal, sometimes we may have to ignore secondary goals. But in order to fulfill secondary goals, we should never ignore the primary. And if we do so, what will happen? This is what this sloka explains. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, elsewhere, there is a story about Muchkund Maharaj. Muchkund Maharaj was probably one of the best examples we can give. Muchkund Maharaj was a very successful material. He was a Vedic king, and he was very powerful, valiant. And there was a time when the Devatas requested him to fight on their behalf when there was a battle between the Danavas and the Devatas. So he was such a valiant that his prowess is known beyond this planet to the higher planetary systems, to the extent that the Devatas has to come and seek his help. So after fighting for Devatas for several days or probably some time, so then the Devatas got upper hand over the Danavas in that battle, and they told Muchkund Maharaj that we don't need you anymore. So they were not thankful. Muchkund Maharaj has to leave the battle in between with no sense of accomplishment, because he went in the middle of the battle, and he was asked to leave before the battle finished, even before the Devatas claimed victory. So when after that he came back to earthly planet, because he was fighting that battle in higher dimensions on higher planets. So when he came down, several generations passed by, and when he walked in the royal palace, nobody could able to recognize him. So several generations passed by, and they could not able to recognize him. He is no longer the king of his kingdom. So dejected, disappointed, tired, because he fought a battle for so long, and all he wanted was just leave the place. And he was sitting on the bank of a river, and in a very disappointed state. That time Krishna appeared. So remember this: anybody can forgive whatever good things we can do, and probably even blame for good things or bad things, but Krishna never will. So even when the Devatas, who are devotees of the Lord, ignored the service Muchkund Maharaj did, but Krishna did not forget. The same way Lord Ramchandra did not forget visiting his devotees in Dandakaranya. Right? So Krishna appeared, and Krishna told Muchkund Maharaj that I want to give you some boon. Muchkund Maharaj was so tired that he asked from Krishna that I don't want any boon, oh my Lord, all I want is just go to sleep. So give me a boon so that I can sleep as long as I want. Who wakes me up from that sleep? When I look at him, he should be burnt to the ashes. So it was a little bit silly, right? When somebody gets the darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and when the Krishna himself says, I am pleased with you, ask something, I will give you. You don't ask for a sleeping pill and a safe, nice, cozy bed to go on for a long sleep. But he was so tired, and Krishna understands better than anybody else. So he said, okay, let him sleep, and probably once he gets proper rest, probably he will come to proper consciousness, so he can make better decisions. So Krishna respects that free will. So Muskand Maharaj was left. He goes into a cave, sleeps, and the rest of the story, Krishna fights with the demon. Demon goes into that cave and wakes up Muskund Maharaj. Krishna, Muskund Maharaj sees the demon. Demon was killed, and Krishna then intentionally sends that demon, chases him. Krishna runs from the battle, Ranchor, right? This is all the pastime of Ranchor. So the point here is, even though Muskund Maharaj does not want to wake up, Krishna wants him to wake up, and he uses him in his pastime. So after he wakes up, Muskund Maharaj explains beautiful things. How as a king, as a grihastha, as a royal, as a powerful, how he was conquered by his lusty desires. Even though he conquered the entire world, but he was conquered by the lusty desires. So our Param Guru, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, was a Naistika Brahmachari, and he famously quoted that if I can produce at least one child who was Krishna conscious, I would have begotten 100 children. Right? So, but he remained Brahmachari. So the challenges in material world are very clear, written on the wall. That lust is the driving force of all decisions we make. That lust exists in gross level as a physical interaction between two opposite sexes, and it exists in subtle level as an attraction to name, fame, and all other glittery of the material world. Right? So in this verse, that is what explains that if somebody is attracted to those material things, what would happen? Right? So, as we turn towards the spiritual life, we have to fight two battles to conquer our anarthas and handle our own conditioning, and Maya, as she expands those weaknesses to test us thoroughly, we have to continuously stay on top of those. Because Maya is empowered by Krishna, we cannot win over Maya. Never. The only time we can get out of this mess is when Krishna blesses us. So we cannot win over Maya by our own effort. Never. Only when Krishna empowers us. Even though the Jiva, by quality, is superior to Maya, Mahamaya, but Jiva cannot overpower Mahamaya because Mahamaya is empowered by Krishna, and she is. We are very tiny, even though we are qualitatively greater than external energy, but quantitatively we are inferior to Mahamaya. So because of that, we have a tendency to come under the control of either Mahamaya or Yogamaya. But when we are under the control of Mahamaya, so the only way we can get out of that and come back into the control of Yogamaya is by the blessings and support from Krishna. So the three modes of material nature will not let us live in peace. These three modes of material nature, like three bamboo trees in a forest. So even though they are nice and friendly to each other since their birth, they are like brothers and sisters. But when wind blows, they rub against each other, and a fire starts, and that burns the whole forest. So none of those trees will expect that the other will cause that friction and the fire that can kill the entire forest and themselves, but it comes anyways. So similarly, even if we think we are sense controlled, Even if we are on the path of devotional service, we will, this material nature, with 3 modes of material nature, will not let us live aparadha free, sinful, free from any sinful activities, or free from committing any mistakes. And the greatest examples are given in Srimad Bhagavatam itself. So the Parikshit Maharaj, which starts, the story of Parikshit Maharaj starts Srimad Bhagavatam, was a pure devotee of the Lord. And he saw Krishna face to face, even before he was born into this material world. And he was protected by Krishna throughout his life. And at the end, Krishna personally supervised his exit from this material body. So he was born in a devotee family, and he was protected by Krishna, and he was supported all through. Still, when he was wandering in the forest, and he was overwhelmed by the thirst and hunger, and he walked into Samik Rishi's ashram, and he made a mistake, which is not very serious, but not expected of him. And because of that, an inexperienced 7-year-old Brahmana overreacted and cursed him to die in 7 days. And Maharaj Parikshit did not blame Srungi for that. And he took a complete responsibility. And he understood that Krishna is sending a message, it is time for me to exit. And he renounced, and he walked into the greatest Vaishnava Sangha that happened in recent memory, and where the great rishis came from higher planetary systems to support Parikshit Maharaj when he was leaving his body. So those great souls, many of them are spiritual masters, and have used their they have large disciplic succession, and they came to emotionally support Parikshit Maharaj. So the point is that is how much he was popular, not only on this planet, but these Vasishta, Vyasa, Narada Muni, all these are his grand spiritual master. They came from higher spiritual, higher planetary system to show a strength of blessings and to support him in his last 7 days. So the blessings of senior Vaishnavas are our greatest arsenal to fight battle with Maya. And when devotees bless us, Krishna's blessings automatically come. When devotees are blessing us, that is an indicator that Krishna is sending his blessings. And Krishna's blessings comes through his devotees. Krishna's protection comes through parampara. The knowledge to understand the entanglement of this material nature is given only through parampara. When we surrender to Krishna, the academic knowledge we can obtain, we can memorize entire Bhagavad Gita, but do not understand the purpose of it. Unless and until we touched by the mercy of pure devotee. So these anarthas, the attraction to material things, are will be conquered, right? They will be conquered, and they have to be conquered. So when we are living in especially in Kali Yuga, it is impossible for us not to commit any mistakes, not to commit any aparadhs, not to make any a completely free idealistic life, right? We cannot live such an idealistic life. And this is material world, and we're living in Kali Yuga. So we have to deal with other people anarthas. And how we deal with that is, we have to deal with their sins, and because of their sinful nature, their offensive behavior, some of those we have to deal with on day-to-day basis. And our Vaishnava qualities, we have to strengthen those with chanting of the holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. By chanting pure name, we develop the 26 Vaishnava qualities, and we strengthen those Vaishnava qualities. When that defensive protection, the protection layer will be strong enough to deflect the anarthas coming from materially conditioned people. So we will be making progressive we are moving progressively on a devotional path. So, for example, the lust we started discussing this story can be conquered by the sense control. So we are not in somebody who is in Grahastha ashram, they are not attracted anymore to their spouse physical features when those senses are under control, right? So similarly, charity. For my own benefit, I will read all these 26 Vaishnava qualities today. So, Srila Prabhupada and especially Mahanadi Swami explains this in beautifully. So, balanced eater, Mita Bhukta, right? So, a Vaishnava eats only so much what is required to keep the body and soul together. The second one is charitable, Sarvopakara. So by giving this, he loses attraction to the property that a Vaishnava acquired, and he also becomes friendly to others, so that the enviousness will be coming under control. Cleanliness, right? So disease free. The cleanliness is both inwards and internal and external. So external means we clean the body. Vaishnava, a Brahmana is recognized by how clean he is, internally and externally. Right? So we become clean internally by chanting the holy names. We become clean externally by following the cleanliness process. Every time, all those things. Every time we go to bathroom, we take a shower and all those things, cleaning, morning, waking up early in the morning, putting tilak and worshipping the deity. Some of the devotees who came from non-Brahmanical background but introduced into Krishna consciousness and initiated into Gayatri, they know how to maintain the difference between cleanliness and uncleanliness, right? So that the transformation itself will explain how significantly we are unclean before that. Compassionate, being karuna. So we don't kill other animals, and we be friendly, respectful, equal to all, sama, expert, daksha, faultless, nirdosha, right? Nidosha, right? So especially we don't find faults with others when that quality is developed. So faultlessness means not finding faults with others, right? So somebody who is finding faults with others is himself faulty. Friendliness, maitra, grave, gambira, kind to everyone, magnanimous, merciful, mild, no material hankering. So which is relevant to today's verse, right? No material hankering, which is called Sanskrit as a non-defiant and never quarrel with anyone. Akruta droha. So the devotee will never quarrel with anybody, knowing that these are all temporary material things. Just like Parikshit Maharaj, he just walked out. He just walked out of the palace, relinquishing all the power, wealth, and everything. He walked into the jungle and finally to the banks of the Ganges. So peaceful, right? Peace can be obtained only when somebody accepts Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Poetic, prideless, meek and humble. So the humility. Respectful, sane, apramatta. Self-controlled. So this is the quality that is also relevant to today's verse. So when one is self-controlled, we cannot hesitate him. That does not mean that that person who has self-control will never get angry. He will get angry. in Ramayana, Hanuman, when he was insulted physically and verbally by the Rakshasas of Ravana, he didn't get angry. He just accepted it. And he dealt it at that level. But when Ravana started offending Sri Ram, Hanuman got angry. So anger will be there in when we are materially conditioned or liberated from material things. Then spiritually, the anger will be there. But that it will become a bad quality, anartha, only when it is directed towards our selfish egoistic reasons. But when we use the same anger towards fulfilling and protecting Krishna consciousness and supporting other Vaishnavas and pleasing Krishna, that is not material quality anymore. So the next one is silent, being silent. So Prajalpa, right? We heard again and again how killing it is to getting indulged into Prajalpa. Simple and steady. Right? Simple means simple living and high thinking. The more we get, the more items and objects we materially accumulate, that will complicate our life. And surrendered, charana. So the Vaishnava, of course, his life starts from surrendering to Krishna and truthful. So we have to be very truthful, right? So I remember when I was probably 20s, in my 20s, and Mahabharata was being telecasted at the time in 80s, early 80s. And with, in that B.R. Chopra series, there is a beautiful conversation happens between Dhritarashtra and Vidura. So this incident happens after Varnavrat, when Pandavas goes and the house of Lak was put into fire and burned. So the news comes to Maharaj Dhritarashtra, and Dhritarashtra immediately calls Vidura, and a lot of things happens, discussion happen, and finally Dhritarashtra is so much worried, and he asks Vidura that the Pandavas or the people of this kingdom will think that I am responsible for this lack of house that killed the 5 Pandavas along with Kunti, Queen Kunti. And Vidura says very beautifully in Hindi, सत्य के बात में सत्य ये है कि महाराज उसे कोई छुपा नहीं सकता. Truth is something that the truth about truth is that nobody can suppress it, right? So one of qualities for a devotee, and Vidura was a climber for his truthfulness. When Draupadi is being insulted in the royal palace of Kurus, and Vidura is the only one who stood up. And Vidura and Vikarna, these are the only 2 people who spoke against the Duryodhana and all the atrocities he was causing in that royal court, right? So the Vikarna, though he was very truthful. In that incident, he could not able to sustain that good quality, and he supported the adharma eventually. But Vidura, on the other hand, he was a great Mahatma. He is a Mahajan. So you see, yes, we appreciate those values. Sometimes we practice it. But what is important is we have to consistently practice it. We should never compromise our core principles. The truth must become truth. That should be the foundation of our activities, our decision-making process, right? So today, with respect to these things on the material platform, I want to inspire myself and all of you by speaking about 3 great kings of Vedic history. And all 3 of them are very powerful and well known. And they all 3 teach us an important lesson. They are grihasthas. They have children. They teach us very important lessons. And the first one was Dhritarashtra. So Bhagavad Gita, in the beginning of Gita, Srila Prabhupada explains that Dhritarashtra is not only spiritually he is not only materially blind, but he is also spiritually blind. So he teaches us that when a person who is sitting on a great position was not sense controlled, but controlled by his materialistic desires, what kind of havoc he can cause. So in Srimad Bhagavatam elsewhere, it is explained that just before the battle of Kurukshetra, the Saptarishis, one after another, came to counsel him not to go to war with Pandavas. And he rejected every single one of those advice. Just imagine how deep his conditioning was. When one after another, the rishis from higher planets are coming and counseling him, and he was rejecting all that advice. And Bhrigu is one of those rishis who came and was explaining, and when Duryodhana became angry and rejecting Bhrigu's advice, Bhrigu Muni cursed Duryodhana. So we see a person who is so materially attached, and in a very powerful, he couldn't able to make use of it, and he brought so much of suffering, and the fame of whole Kuru dynasty, the Bharat dynasty, was destroyed. Probably destroyed because of his wrongful decisions. And the second father I want to discuss today is Dronacharya. So the second D. Okay. Dronacharya was the son of Bharadwaj Muni, who was son of mind-born son of Lord Brahma. So Dronacharya was born without mother, so very sacred birth. But because of he was unable to control his anger, because he was offended by Drupada. So that is the reason I was reading the 26 qualities, right? When a materialistic person, when we come across with a situation, when a materialistic person attacks us, insults us, and if we do not handle that insult, offense carefully, how we will destroy our own life. Because that person is already materially conditioned, he will continue to live materialistically, even after the insult, even after this birth, and several lifetimes after. But we will spoil our own life if we do not handle that situation from an expert level. So that the 26 qualities of a Vaishnava should support us to understand the true nature of this material world and deal with it. So when Drupada was insulted when Drupada insulted Drona, Drona has taken it very seriously, and he took it to the extent that he didn't even go back to his home, but he walked through the jungles and finally ended up in Hastinapur. And he spent the rest of his life to take revenge against Drupada. And he was killed because of that enviousness eventually, the tit for tat kind of thing. And Drishtajumna, and he killed Dronacharya. On the other hand, in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear the story of Avanti Brahmana. And Krishna starts saying to Uddhava, before he said about this Brahmana of the yore, Who knows about this Avanti Brahman? All we can do is imagine. Unless, if that story was not in Srimad Bhagavatam, nobody knows it. Nobody knows in what kalpa that Brahmana was born. But Krishna remembers every single minute detail. And he told Uddhava that if an arrow pierces the heart, probably that will be treated and forgotten, healed and all those things. But when a word pierces your heart, oh Uddhava, we will never find that wound that causes that will be more intense than an arrow piercing the heart. So, oh Uddhava, I am telling you the story of somebody who conquered that insults, and he starts speaking about Avanti Brahmana. And we had those stories. I think I went through those 3 sessions. But here is a great example, an insignificant Brahmana that nobody knows. And he is not son of Bharadwaj Muni, not a son of anybody else. He was a completely unknown. But because he was a pure devotee, totally focused on the lotus feet of Krishna, he just accepted with a humble heart that all the insults are because I am sinful and I deserve more. And the second example is Haridas Thakur in Chaitanya Charitamrita. We know the glories of Haridas Thakur. And even after he was beaten in 22 marketplaces, Haridas Thakur was very humble, very patient. And when he was insulted by Ramchandra Khan, he did not took any of that to his heart. So these 26 qualities should train us when somebody is insulting us in the association of Vaishnavas or outside the Vaishnava association. We should have a very guided reciprocation. And the third person I want to discuss, third father I want to discuss today is none other than Dasarath Maharaj. And he is none other than the father of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ramchandra. And when Ramchandra walked into the jungle because of the Kaikeyi stuff, and Dasarath Maharaj, he loved his son to the extent that he sank into the ocean of sorrow. And in that sorrow, he gave up his life. He died because he could not able to feel separation from his son. And Dhritarashtra was also very similar, but a completely opposite example. So because of his attachment to his son and because of his attachment to his throne, he brought massive killing to the people of this planet. But on the other hand, we hear that Dasarath Maharaj, because of his attachment to his son, he gave up his life and became a very great example. So at the end of the day, Prabhuji's and Mataji's, so what is the differentiator is pure devotional service. Whether we can chant the Vedic hymns, remember the slokas, expertly speak, expertly perform yajna, whether we are rich, we are beautiful, all these things are immaterial. So what is material? What is that common thread that takes us on the path of progressive spiritual life? Are we performing pure devotional service to please Guru and Krishna? That is what makes the trip. So today this sloka, this talks about tactical and strategic. Tactical means business profits, professional things, material advancement. Vedic ritualistic ceremonies, if they are not directed towards pleasing Krishna, they are tactical, they are material, they are not strategic, they are not spiritual. So the acharyas, the gurus, the parampara teaches us that we should not spend too much time with the tactical things. They are necessary. In this material world, in order to survive, we need the food, which is material. We need medication, which is material. We need a house, that is material. We need some material thing, of course. And we need to go and work hard. But There is a limit how much energy we spend towards that. So we should not get carried over by the temporary goals so that it can swallow the permanent goal. Right? So here Srila Prabhupada explained so wonderfully that we should not recognize anybody just because they are rich, they are a politician, they are president of some country. We should not think that they are spiritually advanced because they may quote some verses from somewhere. That does not give us any indication at all. So we heard about Sanatana Goswami and the devotee of Lord Shiva, and he was given a diamond by Lord Shiva, and when he went to Sanatana Goswami threw that diamond into a dustbin, and he asked, "You must have something." That story also teaches us a very important lesson for this purport, that anything spiritual is permanent and more valuable. As Rupa Goswami said, the Ananda that is derived from pure devotional service to Krishna is a trillion times more intense than the Brahmananda that a Mayavadi experiences. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is very graphically explained how sacred and pure the pure devotional service to Krishna is. So I want to highlight the fact that as Krishna explained in Bhagavad Gita 14:18, that the people mostly live on earthly planet are in the mode of passion. Passion means strong attraction to material things, very passionate. So Krishna also explains in Bhagavad Gita that Kamesh Krodha is Rajoguna Samudbhava. So that Rajoguna is the beginning of the fall down. And that Rajoguna will drag us into Tamoguna. So unless and until we are supported by the Parampara and the Vaishnava association, we will not get out of this mode of passion into Sattva Guna and eventually Suddha Sattva. So those who are our real friends are the ones that gives us Krishna and Bhakti. They will take us out of this mode of passion, the Rajoguna, into Sattva and Suddha Sattva. So it is the greatest boon of material life is the mercy and association of Vaishnavas. And the greatest misfortune in our lives is losing that mercy. So that's all I want to say today, Prabhuji and Mataji. Grandraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandot Pranam, Prabhuji. Very, very grateful for very, very, it was a little intense class. I have two questions, Prabhuji, if you permit me.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Prabhuji, in my younger days, when I was in my college or school, there is a family. There is a family, I know, and the wife was not very cooperative to the husband, and she used to shout at him. I used to see him, and in my family we used to discuss, he should not take such kind of abuse. He is a husband. He should be able to direct her and all that. And she was also not very good with the in-laws. And but this husband used to be always silent, never reacted, as if nothing is happening. And he was not devotional also. It's not like he was a devotional person or anything. So it created an impression for me as a child that what he's doing is wrong, because he should react when things are so bad, especially when she is shouting at him, when it is not his fault. As externally, as a neighbor, I used to see this, and it kind of went into my mind that such kind of silence is not good. He should at least react. Now, after coming to devotional life, Prabhuji, and there are so many stories in Bhagavatam. We hear about accepting what is happening around as a treatment for ourselves, whether it is wife or parents or children or neighbors or anything that happens, that I deserve this. It is for removing my false ego. so I better accept it. Now, whenever I try to apply this principle, I remember that family. It kind of, the impression in my mind is not gone. And I kind of feel that not reacting is also not right. That person did not react. And so what is the difference between him, if I don't react? And at the same time, when I look at the, incidents in life, from Krishna conscious perspective, I feel that I deserve to go through whatever I'm going through, whether it is mistreatment by relative, wife, children, parents, or whatever. I'm just giving. So how do I understand whether or not to react when things happen on us, when it affects us? If I react, I'm going against Krishna's plan. If I don't react, I feel that I'm not being responsible. You're on mute.
There are multiple things, Prabhuji.
No, you're okay. You're okay. There is a time lag actually between.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Srila Prabhupada explains in his lectures that when a man is ready and wanted to get married, in good olden days, they used to give him a cow and ask him to take care of that cow and completely live whatever that cow gives to him for 3 years. So he has to take care of that cow, and the milk that comes from that cow, and whatever that cow gives to him, if he can take care of that cow first, and if he can live off with that cow, so that for 3 years, that means this person can sustain the material family life. That is the indication. So somebody put into the training that you go through this 3 years with a cow, then you will become peaceful enough not to get agitated for every small thing, and you will be controlled enough. And whether because he cannot communicate with a cow as he communicates with another human being. So he has to be extremely patient, and he has to completely depend on the mercy of the mother cow and all those things. But now, in the example with that you explained, I don't think that person went through all these training to handle such a misbehaved partner. So obviously there is a Hridaya Daurbhalyam, weakness of heart. So weakness of heart is two ways, Prabhuji. When it is the right time to respond and the person is unable to respond. The second part is when it is not time to respond, that person responds. Right? So one part Krishna handles in Bhagavad Gita when Arjuna said, "I will go back and I will go to begging and I will not fight this war." That is Hridaya Daurbhalyam. So it is time to act, and he was not willing to act. And Duryodhan, on the other hand, he was not supposed to come. All these great heroes, they are not supposed to come to that battle, and they are coming. So Krishna is handling both sides of the coin, and people are aggressive from a wrong perspective, and people are too humble, like Arjuna, and who is not willing to do things. That is the reason Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita, saying that both approaches are wrong. So they should not cause this much of havoc, and Kauravas are doing that. And at that time, you should not keep quiet. So that is the whole purpose of Bhagavad Gita. Now, Prabhuji, material things. The story that I told about Parikshit Maharaj. I was hearing the lecture by Guru Maharaj today, and he was telling it is impossible to live in material world. Impossible by not committing any wrongful deeds. Right? Sometimes we do not act the way we should act, and sometimes we overreact, and it is unbecoming of us. And Parikshit Maharaj himself is an example. So he put the dead snake, as a garland into the Rishi, Samik Rishi's neck. So which is unbecoming of him. But the lesson that we should understand is, as a Vaishnava, how do we take it? Through the lens of 26 qualities of a Vaishnava. So when that suffering is coming to us to purify our ego, and it is not hurting anybody else in the family, we should take it. We should take it with a humble heart. But when that partner is hurting other people in the family, and if that person is a son who has to protect his parents, and his spouse is aggressive towards his parents, or that his spouse is aggressive towards his children, then he should act, because at that point it is not his own reasons alone. There are no egoistic reasons. It is a question of duty. As a father, as a son, he has to provide the security. And not doing that, he is Hridaya Daurbalyam. He will get a sinful reaction out of it. He will get a sinful reaction out of it. When Krishna is blamed, even Krishna was offended, and as his devotee, if we do not respond, the Mata Parvati tells to Lord Shiva that if you are in the association where Krishna is insulted, and you have two choices. Actually, three choices, Mata Parvati says. You kill the offender because he is offending Supreme Personality of Godhead. The second choice is, if you cannot do that, if the offender is too powerful and too strong, you kill yourself, because you cannot live with there is no purpose of your life to live beyond that point. And third option is walk away from that association. Don't go back into that association. So in Kali Yuga, because we are so weak, there are so many practical social constraints. The Acharyas explains us, we do not follow the first two, but we take the third one. So we walk away from that association with of offensive Vaishnava association. Similarly, so our life will, to summarize the answer to your question, Prabhuji, you have to understand through the lens of Avanti Brahmana. Avanti Brahmana went through so much of insult, unbelievable offenses. Everybody was hurting, but he never reacted to it. He took as a purification to himself, because he was all alone. He was all alone. There is nobody else who is being offended because of those incidents. But if the example that you gave is in a family situation, and that person should be responding when that is directed towards any other family member. But people are not trained, Prabhuji. What do you expect from Kali Yuga Grihasthas? No, there is no Grihastha. Everybody is Grihmedi.
Thank you, Prabhuji. It often puts us in that, I'm sure it's everyone's problem today, that whether or not to react and whether or not to accept, and just accept it as God's mercy, that, whatever is happening, even if it's torture, to become humble, become humiliated. Yeah.
So, what I understood from Maharaj lectures is that when those insults are coming to me alone, no matter how hurting those are, you accept and pray to Krishna that I deserve more, but you are giving very less, and go through the purification. But when they are coming against other Vaishnava devotees, other devotees, and Krishna himself, then we have to respond. So the Hladini Mataji, there is a beautiful story, how she reacted in Soviet Russia when the Vaishnavas are being killed.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. And Prabhuji, I said I had one more question, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, talking about the material attraction, some time back, many years back actually, I had read an article of one doctor who actually abused women in their unconscious state, because he was a doctor. He could put people into unconscious state for operations, and he actually raped them. So it was a very, very horrible incident that shook the whole hospital and community. How could he do that? Now this person was a surgeon, who would open up the body and do all kinds of surgeries, right? So it's not like he's not seeing the mucus, pus, or bone, or of a body. and still he was so ignorant and mode of ignorance that he even abused bodies, when they're in unconscious state. And later on, the hospital found out, and he was put behind bars. So I was thinking, the knowledge of we being a material body, or rather, the knowledge of sense and a sense object that Lord Krishna speaks about in Bhagavad Gita, that there are five senses and five sense objects. Even though how much thorough we become on that knowledge, it still doesn't remove the attraction. The attraction is, a different thing altogether. Just by knowing that the body is made of mucus, pus, and bone doesn't mean that we don't get attracted to that body anymore. Thinking that even though knowing it's material. So definitely there is something far higher than enjoying a body, right? I mean, when somebody, a male and a female, when they want to enjoy that body, there is something beyond that, just not about the physical aspect. So I always wondered, what is that? Is it that the person wants the partner to become his servant because he wants to become Krishna in this material world? Like he wants control over everybody. Is that what he enjoys? When even when the physical aspect is external aspect, but internal aspect is what? He wants to conquer and control people. Is that what it is? So I always keep thinking, what is that force that keeps a person to go towards that physical attraction? But actually, it's not the physical attraction, because very evident with the doctor's example that in spite of knowing everything, he's still getting attracted, right? So it's beyond the physical. So is it the controlling mentality, the mentality of we trying to become God in this material world? What exactly do we enjoy in opposite person? What exactly are we trying to?
Yeah, again, Prabhuji, I know you know the answer to this, but you're asking anyway.
No. I want to hear. No, it keeps troubling me. That's why.
So, yeah, Arjuna asked a very similar question, but I'm not Krishna. So, when Arjuna asked Krishna that what is that force that overwhelm the individual jiva to propel and bring to the level of killing his own family members, what does the Duryodhan need more? Right? He is already powerful, and he was born in a very great family, dynasty, and he has everything that anybody can aspire. So why he was so against us, five Pandavas, and eventually want to kill us? So that is when Krishna says, Kamesha Krodesha Rajo Guna Samudbhava Mahasano Mahapapma Buddhayo Avya Vairina. So that lustful desires, Kama, is like a fire. And when we are trying to please that fire, we are actually pouring ghee into that fire, and it becomes more and more. So the only way to control these material desires is not paying attention to them. So the doctor you said is he knows, he sees all the material bodies, but because his lack of spiritual knowledge, and more than that, knowledge will not bring any value to anybody's life, because his unfortunate situation of not touched by the mercy of a pure devotee. No matter, he can be an Indra or Indragopa insect, like Prabhupada said. But unless somebody is touched by the mercy of a pure devotee, that person will not be doing any meaningful thing. The Prabhupada said that the very beautiful story when Indra was cursed by Brahaspati. He enters into a body of a hog, and then he unites with a male hog and starts begetting so many children, and he feels so comfortable eating stool and producing so many children. And when Lord Brahma had some important work for Indra, and when he sends his messenger to call Indra, and Indra was not found in Amravati. and the messenger starts tracing him, and he eventually traces Indra into this hog, the pig body, and he comes and tells Indra that Lord Brahma wants to see you. And he says, I don't want to get out of this, but I am too comfortable in this situation. That is familiarity, right? So he is too comfortable having sex and is producing so many children and eating stool. So that is where this particular doctor is. But then the Lord Brahma has to come personally and remind Indra that you are not actually that pig. You are Indra. And when Brahma gave his mercy, Indra could be able to recognize and get out of that body. So then imagine, Prabhuji, then compare this, this poor doctor with Indra. Indra, how powerful he is. And his guru was Brahaspati. And even after that level of education and training, the Maya was so powerful that he can, So, so Maya is so powerful that he can be, anybody can, I remember either on this call or some other call, Prabhuji, I told the 6 sons of Marichi. Marichi is a mind-born son of Brahma, and he had 6 sons. When those 6 sons laughed at Brahma, when Brahma was running after Mata Saraswati, and for that offense, those were cursed, right? So even if somebody is grandson of Brahma, and they cannot, even if somebody is Indra, they cannot escape it. Even if somebody is Lord Shiva, still they cannot escape the clutches of Maya. Maya is too powerful, bro. Too powerful. The only way to get out of that Maya is by the mercy of a pure devotee. That is the magic pill, silver bullet. So to summarize, Prabhuji, very few words. If somebody behaves according to Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, it is a surprise. If somebody doesn't behave, it is not a surprise, no matter whether he is a devotee or not. Even if somebody is a devotee like Indra and still not behave according to Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, still it is not a surprise. That is expected out of this material world.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, one quick question. Does it mean that all Sattva Guna people are God conscious? Or can somebody be in Sattva Guna, but still he is not God conscious?
Yeah. Can somebody in Sattva Guna and not God conscious? All the devatas, demigods are like that. The Sattva Guna that we experience in material world is mixed with material. That is a material mode. The devatas are very great example. The 3 crore plus 33 crores of devatas, they are karma mishra bhaktas, because even though they are in Sattva Guna, but they want to enjoy the fruits of their karma. They perform devotional service. But they don't perform pure devotional service. Anyabhilashita sonyo jnana karmadi anavratam anukulyena krishnanuselanam bhaktiratma. Jnana karmadi. That is the definition of Rupa Goswami's jnana karmadi. But the people in higher planetary systems up to Pitraloka, they are not free from jnana and karma. In this case, the devatas are karma captured, karma mishra bhaktas. So the devotional service is contaminated with that their desire to enjoy the results of their karma. So example is Indra, Lord Indra. How many times he goes after his opponents, his perceived opponents, even though they are not his opponents, but perceived. They could become a threat to his position. So he attacks them just like little 5-year-old boys, or or Hiranyakasipu, or how many stories we heard about it. Because he was so attached to his position and all the benefit package that comes out of it. But pure devotees are freed from that. That's the reason one of the things I said today is our suffering in material world is proportional to our material attachments. We will continue to suffer as long as we are attached to anything that is material. So one of the greatest cause for our suffering is material dependency, Prabhuji. If parents depend on children and the children are taking care of them as per parents' expectation, then they suffer for that. Even though they are giving them food, shelter, but the parents are expecting more than that. The expectations are high. So because of that material dependency on children, they suffer. Similarly, children depend on parents, and the children may want a BMW car from their parent, and the parent he may not be able to give or do not want to give, and there is a suffering in that. So, and somebody fights a general election, and the result is not for his satisfaction, it creates so much of suffering. So the material dependency, quote unquote, Prabhuji, material dependency is the root cause of our suffering. And we have to replace that with spiritual dependency. So when we die, we don't take any of the material relationships with us, but we take the karma with us. And that karma may take us all the way to a worm in the stool. And the parents, the spouse, our partners of many different lives, and our children, nobody will come with us to live in that stool, but Krishna will come with us to live in that stool as a Paramatma. One who understands this principle, understands how merciful Krishna is, and understands which is a spiritual relationship, which is not. That does not mean we ignore material relationships, but we handle those material relationships at that level. We give proper priority and importance to it, but do not allow material relationships to go to the level of spiritual importance. Material relationships are material relationships. They end over a period of time.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, in today's sloka that you mentioned about a rich man, so for example, like if the rich man is doing all good things, not God conscious things, but he's making good money by doing workaholic, but he's still not not being a bhakta. So what happens to him? Like, will he if he's becoming a very rich person, but he's not God conscious, so will he be taking birth as a human being, or he will not take as a human being?
Of course, Prabhuji. Of course. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, Punya and Papa, both of them, Punya and Papa, are two parts of poison. For a devotee, both are same. Right? So Punya, so somebody who is very rich, but not God conscious, but still do not commit sinful activities, at least not gross sinful activity. It is not possible to live in material world, especially in Kali Yuga, without committing sinful activities. So the more we mature and in spiritual life, we understand that principle, and we continuously pray to Krishna that please protect me, because we cannot live even a single moment without committing an offense or sinful activity. So only the strength of holy name will protect us by not getting into it. Right? So again, coming back to your question. Another devotee commented on Mother Teresa. So Mother Teresa did so much of charity. So what will be her next destination? And the one sannyasi in our movement told Michael Jackson that he was a very pious person in his previous life. He was a king in Europe, and he was a very good man. And for that reason, he because of the good things he did in his previous life, he took birth in United States, enjoyed all the benefits that comes being a United States citizen, and become very popular and very rich. But he mishandled his life. Right? So he wasted his time. So eventually, that is the reason Prahlad Maharaj said, Sramehi ava kevalam. If we are not doing all these things for the benefit of pure devotional service, It is only it's a matter of time before the death will take away all the results of it.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
So the common, the differentiator is, like I said, Prabhuji, the differentiator is whatever we are doing, every activity that we are doing, what is the differentiator is that pleasing to Guru and Krishna. If not, it produces a karmic result that we have to deal with.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
So, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, based on, one second, Prabhuji, so Prabhuji, based on what you told, it becomes very, very clear, reiterative rather, that only by the mercy of a pure devotee, there is some hope in devotional service. There is some hope to come out of the shackles of Maya. Not knowledge can help us, not our own austerities can help us. It's only, ultimately, it has to be mercy of a pure devotee. That is coming out very clearly, Prabhuji, that we cannot, deal with Maya. It has to be a pure devotee's blessing that Krishna will hear and agree to lessen his impact of Maya on us. Now, Prabhuji, another thing that comes up is, even when pure devotee is in front of us, sometimes pure devotees are there in our life. The great sannyasis we have in our movement, they are very extraordinary people. They extraordinary beings, right? So they are in access to us, but still we don't take their association properly. Meaning like we don't implement what they are saying, right? Like even when Prabhupada was on the planet, I heard from one sannyasi Maharaj that there are not everyone who came to Prabhupada got delivered. Many people even came, heard from Prabhupada and just left. I'm sure something would have gone into the next life or later in their life, but so there is aspect of taking pure devotee association, and there is aspect of actually implementing what his instructions are, right? So that needs surrender. So we need surrender when we go to a pure devotee, that okay, now this is the only way I'm going to hear from this pure devotee and change myself. And that is when the mercy starts. And for that surrender to happen, we should lose all hope in anything else of this world. There should not be any other hope. Like, okay, this is the only way. Unless I serve this pure devotee, I cannot be happy in this world or any world. So for that no hope situation to happen, we have to go through so many tortures, in this material world, that we are beaten up to pulp, that now we decide, okay, now there is no other way except to surrender to pure devotee. So again, if I see this whole loop of coming back, what we are going through in our life, in our current life, in terms of torture in relationships or workplace, or bodily torture in terms of diseases, all this is inevitable, isn't it, Prabhuji? I mean, this is needed for us to finally lose the hope. Is this understanding correct, Prabhuji, all the way, or am I missing something?
Yeah. No. There is a story in Chaitanya Charitamrita when I believe Srivas Thakur brought a Brahmana boy who was, since his birth, he was drinking, all he ate was nothing other than pure cow milk. So when that Brahmana boy, Brahmachari, came to know that Lord Chaitanya is dancing at Srivas Sangam, he wants to watch that dance. And Srivas Thakur hides him behind the curtains. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came that evening and started dancing, and he stopped in the middle and says, "I am not getting that ecstasy. There is somebody in the audience who is a new member, and that I am not expecting. Who is that?" And finally, Srivas Thakur came and showed that this is a Brahmana boy, and he drinks nothing other than the milk, and he was so pure and all these things. So Lord Chaitanya becomes so angry and says that just because somebody is drinking only the cow milk and the Brahmana makes him a devotee, and he asked him to get out, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu kicks that Brahmana boy out. Right, Prabhuji? So now imagine ourselves. So so we have been eating, drinking all nonsensical things doing all nonsensical things, and but we are receiving the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So that is one story, Prabhuji. Our material qualifications are not indicative of anything. So because today's topic is about grahasthas, I want to stress that fact, right? Being a grahastha is a disadvantage because in Kali Yuga, in material world, we are 360 degrees vulnerable to attack. But the good thing about this, being a grahastha, is our disqualification itself becomes a qualification for us in Lord Chaitanya's movement. So if we are sincere, that is our only investment, right? If we are sincere in surrendering to Lord Chaitanya and to his instructions, that becomes our all disqualifications will become an asset for us. And the way Rupa Goswami fell at the feet of Lord Chaitanya, and he says that beyond anybody, I am the least qualified. I am the, oh my Lord, you meet so many other people, but I am the least qualified. So I deserve your mercy most. And I deserve it first. See? So our disqualification will become a qualification, our strength. We have to make that happen. In order to make that happen, we have to be sincere. And how that sincerity will be demonstrated, how does Lord Chaitanya or Krishna will see that this devotee is sincere? They see our chanting of the holy names and taking the association of Vaishnava. But the second part of your question, probably, if you allow me, I wrote notes to myself.
Yes.
I would, if you allow me, I will share. I call that as a KPIs, key performance indicators. So in spiritual life, how do I measure whether I am moving forward or going backwards, right? So these come from our scriptures, of course. These are the 6 KPIs that tell us to what degree my surrender is progressing. Of course, on day one, when I took my initiation from my spiritual master, that is not a 100% surrender. So it is progressive. So the first KPI that says is accept things favorable to devotional service. Okay. So am I rejecting anything that is favorable to devotional service? That gives me clues. So either I am moving forward or backward. The second thing is reject things unfavorable to devotional service. So that also tells me whether I am moving forward or backwards. Third thing, believe firmly in Lord's protection. That's what you were mentioning before. So in fact, out of the point 3 comes the surrender, the desire to surrender. That, that Baba, this Baba, that was, no, it is Lord Krishna. We have to believe firmly in Lord Krishna's protection, that if I am in trouble, he will protect me, just like Prahlad Maharaj is an example understood. The fourth KPI is that feel exclusively depend on the mercy of the Lord. So the protection that we want, we'll take it only from Krishna. We don't distribute our surrender to many different forms, shapes, and colors. It is total and complete, and it is singular surrender. So that only Krishna will protect. I will accept only if Krishna gives me food, only if Krishna protects me, nothing else. Exclusive dependence on Krishna. An example is I keep telling about Karna and Arjun. Right? Karna is more powerful than Arjun. He is much greater hero, valiant hero than Arjun. But because he was not exclusively dependent on Krishna, like Arjun, he faced so many troubles, and he was eventually defeated and killed by Arjun. So fifth one is have no interest separate from the interest of the Lord. So no personal agendas. So that is a powerful indicator. Number 6, always feel oneself meek and humble. So these are the 6 KPIs that the Acharyas gave us that will, we can gauge whether we are moving forward or backward.
Sorry, what is the difference between third and fourth? I got a little confused on that. Third and fourth.
Third one is believe firmly in Lord protection, means Krishna will protect me.
Yes.
And fourth one is exclusive dependence. That is explained in Narada Bhakti Sutras. So that only Krishna and nothing other than Krishna. So we will come totally and completely surrender to Krishna. So example that our spiritual masters gave was during Rasa Leela, when Krishna wants to test gopis, and he took the four-handed Narayana form, and he appeared before those gopis, and gopis immediately bow down at his lotus feet and ask, where is the nutcut? Where is Krishna hiding? So yeah, we respect everybody, but that total surrender is to Krishna. Our life and soul is Krishna.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. It's very helpful. I'll try to remember this.
And Krishna wants to test gopis and show all of us that how exclusively the damsels of Vraja, how superior they are in the words of Lord Chaitanya, because they are not even attracted to Lord Narayan. Their attraction is only towards Krishna, exclusive Krishna. So they left their homes, their husbands, their families, and walked into the jungle in the middle of the night when Krishna played the fifth note on his flute, risking. Right? That is exclusive dependence.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Okay, so it's already 8:50. It is also late for Prabhuji. So if there are no more questions, we'll wrap up. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. I'm very, very grateful. And you did mention about some health challenges that you're going through. We all pray that Krishna relieves you from those challenges and you become more and more healthier, so you can help devotees like us who always are in need of your association. So, and extremely sorry to keep you late, Prabhuji. It is almost 11 o'clock for you in the night. So let us thank Srinivas Acharya Prabhu with 3 loud Haribols. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I hope the situation in US is okay, Prabhuji, with Corona, or is it spreading there?
No, Prabhuji, it is getting worse, Prabhuji.
It's getting worse. Is it the third wave or the?
I think we are in fourth wave now, but with Delta spreading so fast, Prabhuji.
Oh, Krishna.
So yeah, so back to office dates were given, but the Pfizer is a little bit protecting, but now Florida is a hotbed, Louisiana is hotbed. Every day almost to 100,000, 200,000 people, new infections. So masks are coming back. So it is a little bit scary for us.
Is the earlier vaccine working, Prabhuji? Just to know, because your first-hand information.
Yeah, but they are working, bro. Pfizer is, I believe it is 84% now effective.
Okay.
People are not dying. Those who have taken Pfizer, I think who are vaccinated, I believe the CDC presented 0.0001% of those vaccinated only died with the Delta.
Okay.
So it is working, bro. It is working, but we have to go through that pain. People who have taken Pfizer and other types of vaccines also got infected with the Delta. They have to go through the suffering regardless, but they are not dying.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Hare
Krishna. Dandavat Prabhuji. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anta koti Vaishnavandiki ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srinivas Acharya Prabhu ki jai. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.